Welcome, everybody. Welcome to Fraternity Foodie. This is Mike Eilon with Greek University, and we call these segments Fraternity Foodie because there is nothing like food to bring people together. So make sure that you pay attention. Wait until the end of the interview. You're going to find out where our guest loves to go to eat. And so make sure you pay attention and wait for that. So today we have with us a special guest because I want to make sure that student voices are also heard here at Fraternity Foodie, not just administrators, not just headquarters staff, not just speakers. I want the student voice here as well. And so today we have with us a special treat, Majesty Uwagerikpe, the VP of Diversity and Inclusion for the IFC at UPenn. Welcome, Majesty.
Thank you so much for having me. I'm glad to be here.
Hey, I am so happy to have you on the show. This is now episode number 24, and I got to tell you that for a while now, I've been trying to get you on the show because I read that article about you getting that position at UPenn, and I said, I got to speak to Majesty. I gotta make sure that we duplicate this at IFCs all over the country, at Panhellenic all over the country. I think it's fantastic what you're doing. So let's get a chance to get to know you first. I know you're a computer science major at the University of Pennsylvania currently. So what made you choose UPenn of all places?
Yeah, choosing the University of Pennsylvania for me was a very, very difficult choice in the industry journey. I'm originally from Georgia, so I had one of the best engineering schools in my backyard, Georgia Tech. But I always knew growing up, I always wanted to leave Georgia, kind of get a different experience, introduce myself to different kinds of people from all over the world and with different interests, right? So when I decided to go to Penn, it's because not only do I love computer science, but I'm someone who's very explorative, and I like to explore different areas. So I'm interested in different business topics like marketing or business analytics or finance or anything. I have a Wharton classes I can take to enrich my knowledge of that. I'm interested in a certain English topic or a history topic or a political science topic. I can take classes centered around that, right? And at Penn, I'm surrounded by the best in the field all over. And for me, that really excites me because I know no matter what I'm taking it from someone who's very experienced with the field and is very passionate about that field. So combined with my interest to surround myself with with something different, a new culture, a new idea, a new climate, I always knew that the University of Pennsylvania was the school I was drawn to, and I'm really glad I decided to make that choice.
Yeah, there's no question. There's some extremely bright students at UPenn, no question in the world. But you got to deal with winters in Pennsylvania, which is not as as Georgia.
Yeah, it took a while to get used to, for sure.
For sure. I went to school at the University of Buffalo, and I was getting used to like 4, 5, 6 feet of snow, and I'm like, what am I doing here? Like, this is crazy. So I know that you've also done a couple of intern positions. You did one for Crystal Computer Corporation, where you work on product design, hardware maintenance of satellite communication devices, which is just so cool. The other one is for the city of Sewanee, where you're bringing new businesses and restaurants into the city of Sewanee. So how have these intern positions helped to guide your coursework at Penn and what ultimately you're going to do professionally once you graduate from Penn?
Yeah, so those two internships were something I was really glad I was able to do during my senior year of high school. So I worked at Crystal during my first semester. And so at the time I entered into my senior year, it was kind of time to apply for school. And I always knew I was kind of leaning towards computer science, but I wanted to affirm my belief in that by having some type of experience in the field. So I did this program during my senior year that allowed you to intern at 2 places during your senior year, one each semester. The first semester I was able to work at Crystal, and Crystal was very different for me because during high school when I started to explore stuff, I'd only really dealt with the software side. This was my first time dealing with the hardware side. And so it was really, really cool for me to be able to explore that and see if that's something I was interested in as well. And I got to learn from really great people in that field. My managers and my fellow interns were really, really amazing. And I was able to learn about how to handle servers, how to deal with these different technologies and screen design, and how to send these professional emails to these corporations because they work with ESPN, the military, and all these different groups. So it was a really, really amazing experience for me. And by the time I had finished in December of my senior year, I knew that I wanted to study computer science and I wanted to go into software engineering. During my second semester, I worked for the city of Sewanee. I worked as a business development intern under a guy named Adam Mensch, who's to this day still a great mentor and a great friend to me. So what I was able to do with him was basically like we would interact with these different businesses to try to bring them to the city to kind of mostly on the restaurant side. And that was really great for me because I was able to go to these meetings, meet the different faces who like made my hometown what it was. And for me, I learned how to like those soft skills, how to talk to people, how to like go through those deals. And so that was really informative for me and led to a lot of personal growth because I feel like a lot of the opportunities I have now that deal with more people facing, more soft skills oriented, I've learned through that internship. And so those two experiences for me during my senior year were really important. They kind of draw me on the path I am today, going down like software engineering and product design. So I'm really fortunate to have those opportunities. And this summer, I'm going to be working at Microsoft. I actually fly out in 2 days. So I'm super excited to kind of use those skills and the things I've learned at Penn as well to kind of move my career forward.
That's incredible. You're headed to Microsoft, man. You are like moving and shaking. You're killing it. You are just killing it. I absolutely love to hear that, and God bless you, man. You are going to be a rock star. There's no question about it. I'm going to look back at this interview and be like, I knew Majesty way back when. That is so cool. That is so cool. And I know you did some work as a screenwriter. You were producing some advertisements for various companies. You also worked as, in various different positions there with the advertisements. So how does a position in terms of being a screenwriter, how does that fit into what you want to do in the future as well?
Yeah, that's a great question. So for me, I kind of have this motto that I like to live my life by. That's like, if you are even remotely interested in something, try it to see where it goes. So I always kind of interested in like the whole writing, filmmaking sort of deal. And so I decided to pursue that opportunity during my freshman year at Penn. And it was a really great experience because I was surrounded by such creative minds that I could learn from. And for me, it really helped bridge the gap between like creativity and like critical analysis. And for me, that was really important for me to kind of hone those writing skills that I wasn't so used to, being someone who was more interested in that engineering side. And so while I am not planning to go into filmmaking, that's not the path I see myself in. For me, it was really important to be able to explore that creative side of myself and see where that would lead. And for me, I still think that even though like I'm not directly going to that field, making those advertisements, working with those creative people, working with the clients that we served with, really taught me how to kind of express my ideas in a very conveying and like compelling fashion, which I think is important no matter what field you go into. So I'm really glad and grateful for the experiences. During my time, I was able to write a campaign for a diagnostics company and work on part of a advertising campaign for a medical marijuana company. And for me, it was really special for me to be able to explore that creative side and kind of hone on my writing skills as well. So for me, even though, like I said, it's not what I want to go into, it was still very important for my personal growth and my career development, for sure.
I love that outlook that you have. You're able to do an honest assessment of who you are today, what skills you need, soft skills, creative skills, people skills, maybe some of the things that don't ordinarily come naturally to you. You can do an honest assessment and then actually do an internship or get involved with some area of the community to brush up on those skills, even though maybe it's not exactly what you want to do. You're still conscious about it and you're making an effort to get better in those areas. I just love that you can do that assessment and address it and actually fix it. I mean, that's cool. That is really, really great. I also see that you're a member of Phi Gamma Delta fraternity. So what made you choose Fiji over other groups on campus?
Yeah, it's a really crazy story because when I was going into Penn, when I was going into college, I thought I would never be the kind of guy who joined a fraternity. I was like, I'm studying computer science, there's a lot of work, I don't need any distractions. From the South, some chapters down here don't have the best reputations. So I always thought, like fraternity life is not for me. Like, that's just something that's not part of my experience. So I'm going to find fulfillment in other ways. So during my first semester at Penn, I completely shut out the idea of joining fraternity. I had very close friends of mine who were very much interested in joining fraternities and would tell me about the houses they were talking to, like the great brothers they had met. And for me, it's like, that's your guys' stuff. Like, I'm happy that you found that for you, but it's not something for me. Then second semester rolls around and then open recruitment comes and my friends who were interested in joining fraternities like, let's go, like they have free food, like you don't have to be interested in anybody, let's just like go get some free food. And so for me, I always love free food, just like the next guy. So I said, why not? Like I'll go. let's just get some free food. So going to the Fiji house, and I see two brothers, and at first I was very standoffish, like I don't want to do this, like I just want to get my free food and leave essentially. But a couple of brothers approached me. We ended up having these conversations, and I liked the guys, and I thought, you know what, like I said, back to my motto, if you're ever remotely interested in something, like give it a chance. And so I met guys I liked with, other guys from computer science, other guys who were very interested in the same things I was, and so I gave it a chance. And for me, what was the big turning point, what was the pivotal moment, was when I started meeting people that I knew outside of like social interactions. Fellow students who were in my classes, who were in my clubs, kids who I knew like had aspirations for something more, who were at Penn because they have a goal they want to pursue, and they want to be successful in life. They weren't just here to party or have fun or any of those things, but they're really here to focus on school and their careers and like their relationships with other people in a meaningful way. And so when I discovered that, I was like, you know what, like let me give this a chance. And so I decided to rush Fiji. I was fortunate enough to be welcomed to the brotherhood, and for me, it's been something that's been so special and such a huge part of my life. One of the best decisions I've ever made, because I'm now surrounded by a group of guys who I love so much, who I call my family, I call my friends. And so I'm super fortunate. I took a chance on something that I really had wanted no parts of, and kind of was able to put what I thought aside to kind of give it my own honest opinion and analysis. And for me, it's been one of the greatest experiences of college, and will be one of the greatest experiences of my life. So I'm super happy and fortunate for that.
Yeah, I'm super happy that you did your own independent analysis, that you didn't just listen to stereotypes, and you actually went to go see what it was all about, and you found that, yes, this could be a home for you. So I'm so glad that you actually did that analysis and you stepped outside of your comfort zone to try it. And I can't say enough good things about Phi Gamma Delta.
Thanks so much.
One of the best fraternity men that I know is your executive director, Bill Martin, who is a veteran in the industry. He's done so much to help all of Greek life, not just Phi Gamma Delta, but just to advance Greek life on campuses all across the country. And I know he's retiring in June after a career as the executive director of Fiji. And so I can't say enough good things about your organization. I can't say enough good things about Bill. He has been very, very kind to me. I'm not his fraternity brother. I'm in another fraternity, but he just saw it as an opportunity to help grow Greek life by working with me over the years. And I've always been so grateful for that. And so I can't say enough good things about the organization.
Thank you so much.
Absolutely. And also, you know, my parents are actually from another country as well. They knew very little about fraternity when I joined. And you know what? They still don't know much about fraternity to this day. And I worked as the CEO of my fraternity. So, so what did your parents think when you joined Phi Gamma Delta, and what do they think about it now?
Yeah, they were really shocked at first. I guess I could say, because I had expressed such a disinterest in joining fraternity. I was like, oh, it was a waste of time. Like, it's not for me. Like, there's no way I join fraternity. And so I was so adamant to my parents I was never going to join one. So they're really surprised when I, like, in January, I told them, yeah, like, I'm going to join this fraternity. And they're like, what? Like, you're always like, I'm against it. Like, I don't want to do this. So, like, why the sudden change of heart? It was kind of easier-ish for me to kind of start to sway their opinion, because my older brother joined fraternity. He's part of the Pi Alpha chapter of Phi Beta Sigma Incorporated, part of the NPHC. And I've been something that was really important to him and really pivotal to his college experience to this day. And so they kind of were somewhat familiar with this whole fraternity thing that so many guys are involved with. But their main concern was that it didn't detract from my schoolwork and from my studies and from other things that were important to me and important to them. So once I was able to stress to them, like, hey, like, this is only going to add to my experience, it won't take away. Like, I'm surrounded by great mentors, people to push me in a good environment. And I was able to express those sentiments to them. They started sway their mind a little bit. And since I've joined, like, my grades have increased. I'm working on my exam this summer. Like, things have only gotten better since I've joined Fiji. And so because I've had that upward momentum and I've been improving and not staying stagnant or detracting, they've been nothing but supportive, and they're really glad that I have this kind of support system for me being so far away from home. So they started off being like, why is he doing this? I kind of don't want him to do it, and now they're not anything. They're nothing but supportive now.
That's really good. And I'm curious about your brother because your brother is a Sigma, obviously an NPHC
Yeah.
organization. So what did your brother think? I mean, maybe he expected that you were going to join an NPHC organization as opposed to an IFC organization. So what did your brother think about it?
Yeah. So my brother did try to kind of push me down that NPHC path. When I was at Penn, he was like, oh, like, because we have Alpha Phi Alpha, who's another a wonderful NPHC organization on campus. And he kind of said, hey, you should consider joining this organization. And he kind of sent me the information, all those things. He did his research, his due diligence, because being part of an NPHC it's really important. I think it's really important for the African American community because it gives us a way to celebrate our culture and all those things. And so I'm really glad he had that for himself. But for me, I don't know, when I interacted with Phi Gamma Delta, it was kind of like a clicking for me. For me, it was just such a diverse chapter because we have people from all over the world and all different religions and creeds and races and ethnicities, people from different socioeconomic backgrounds and sexual orientations. For me, like having such a diverse community, for me, I feel like for me personally, it was so pivotal to my growth. I feel like it's a community that I needed to be in. And so when I kind of expressed why I wanted to join Phi Gamma Delta and why I felt I fit in best with the organization, he was nothing but supportive. And he's really glad I have the organization. So while he did try to push me down the MPHC route naturally, I think he's very glad that I have such a great community to be a part of. So he's supportive now, but of course he pushed me towards that MPHC route initially.
Right. That's a really, really interesting perspective. And I love that he supports you now. Ultimately, it's your happiness that's the most important thing.
Yeah.
That's got to be paramount is, are you happy with this group of men? Yes or no, right? So I'm just happy that you found your home and that your brother and your parents support you now because I think you're in the perfect place to be successful.
Thank you so much.
Yeah, that's really good. Now, the other thing that's kind of interesting, and this was probably before your time, but the UPenn IFC initially said that they wanted a diversity chair position 2 years ago. Then they stopped the search. And then they finalized this new VP of Diversity Inclusion position where you eventually stepped into that role. So I'm just kind of curious what you might have heard in terms of the hesitation by the IFC after the position was first agreed to by the members 2 years ago.
Yeah, like you said, that was kind of before my time. When that board was kind of dealing with that situation, I was like still in high school, still in Georgia. So I can't speak too much. What I can say just from my experience on the board and kind of like maybe trying to think about what they might have been thinking, it's since we're only in like our boards only last for a year, it's really, really hard to make those big monumental changes. And so for them, it's like, well, something like this is huge. And if you're going to do it, you want to make sure you do it to the best of your ability and do it right. So I can't speak to like what the board was thinking, but maybe because of that constant turnaround and constant turnover you have with the boards, that maybe they weren't able to get it done. For our board, for Brian Schmidt, who's our president, and I, creating this position was super important to us and was something that was going to be very monumental and pivotal to what our board did. And so I was originally elected as the assistant vice president of recruitment and new member education. And then right as we got our board started, Brian kind of came up to me with this idea, like, why don't we transition your role into this VP of diversity and inclusion? For me, I was ecstatic because for me, as someone who's African American, who's someone who comes from a family of immigrants from Nigeria, for someone who can be described as quote unquote different, for me, having a position like this in the IFC was very, very important to me. And so for me and Brian, like, as soon as we got in, we hit the ground running on making this position. And so that now we're very glad that we've finalized this position set in stone, and I've been able to begin that work that I want to do to kind of improve these issues and this culture on our campus. And I hope that permeates the campuses across the country. But I can't really speak to like where that board was thinking. I can only speak to that now we're in the position where we have this position and we can start doing really, really amazing work.
Yeah, I'm so happy that you and Brian saw the value in this position because, like you said, I'd love to see this spread to every IFC, every Panhellenic in the country, as far as I'm concerned, because there is value to the work that you're doing, and I believe it's the future. I believe that our chapters are better the more diverse that they are. They're going to be able to make faster decisions, better decisions, and even predict the future if they have a diverse membership. And for us, facing such difficult challenges within fraternity and sorority today, we need all the help that we can get. I mean, let's just be honest,
Exactly. Yeah.
right? So I'm so glad that you and Brian saw the value in this position, man. I just think that's fantastic. And, I preach diversity certainly with all organizations almost every single time that I speak to students. So in your opinion, why is that diversity within student organizations so important?
Yeah, that's a great question. And before I begin, I want to stress that to anyone like listening and watching that diversity is not just something that's important in student organizations in Greek life. I feel like that's something important to all organizations, whether it's a high school club, a fraternity, a sorority, or even a multi-million-dollar corporation. Organizations are better when they have a diverse membership. A couple of reasons for that is just like you alluded to before, it leads to better ideas, right? When you have members who are diverse, who come from different walks of life, different experiences, and different backgrounds, they're able to bring unique perspectives to the table, right? So we have a homogenous group of people that might miss out on key elements that are really important to solving whatever problem they're tackling. But when you have these different minds who come from these different backgrounds and these different mindsets, you're able to come up with these unique perspectives to kind of build the best solution possible, because you're not thinking in one lane, you're kind of thinking with the whole highway in mind. So for me, I feel like that's very important to have that unique membership to kind of create those unique ideas. I also think it leads to more personal growth, because when you're surrounded by someone who's different from you, you might not be familiar with where they come from or the issues they face, you're able to be introduced to those different walks of life and kind of try to question your own beliefs and learn to be more accepting and loving of other people. And I feel that's so important, especially in our day and age where there's so much that's trying to tear us apart. I feel like having these diverse organizations helps to bring us together when we understand why people believe certain ways and kind of understand people who are different from us. And so I feel like diversity is so important. And I like to preach to people I interact with that you should always be striving to increase the diversity of your organization, because it only serve to help the organization. If you do research on your favorite companies, or your favorite industries, the ones who are most successful are the ones who are most diverse, because they have those unique perspectives, because their members or their clients or their employees are always learning and growing, and they're always kind of questioning their beliefs. When you question your beliefs, you learn to better solutions. So I really preach to anyone watching or anyone at home that you should always strive to increase the diversity of organization, because it can only lead to better results.
Preach. I mean, you absolutely nailed it. And it was so interesting. I remember when I was first executive director of Sigma Pi, I went to go and visit this one particular chapter that we had on the West Coast. And I'm not going to call them out because I love the brothers, but I walked into the chapter meeting and they were 100% Latino. And they said to me, Mike, aren't you so impressed by our diversity? And I'm like, oh my God, you don't know what diversity means, right? And so, and I love them dearly, but they had no concept of what diversity actually meant. And so I'm just so glad that you're sharing your wisdom, not only at UPenn, but now with fraternity brothers all over the country, to explain what it is, why it's important. And, the way that I look at it is, if you have 100% of anything, you really only have one dimension. And I feel like if you have
Exactly.
you now have three dimensions. You could look at these problems from all different lenses, and that ultimately is going to drive a much better solution.
Exactly.
So that's fantastic. Now that you have this position at Penn, what is your plan to bring diversity into recruitment for predominantly white organizations?
Yeah, that's a great question, and it's something I've tackled heavily since I've taken office. One thing I want to do is kind of stress that we're not actually predominantly white. That's a belief I had when I first came to Penn, when I first joined a fraternity, and even when I was first elected to IFC. But when we did our research, it turns out that our IFC is currently and matches the statistics of the university as a whole. So it turns out that we're not as white as as we thought. And I feel like one step turns increasing on diversity is to show people that we do have diversity. Of course, we can always improve. There's always room to go, but we do have some diversity. And I have the belief that there's a house for every member of the Penn community if they choose that Greek life is something for them. And so the first thing is to show that, hey, like, we do have diversity. We're not just all white. If you are someone from a different race, ethnicity, religion, or any other description that sometimes serves to divide us, there is a house for you. We have co-ed chapters. We have members of the LGBT community feel comfortable and celebrated through their Denny's at our campus, and I want to showcase that. One way I'm doing that is I just had a diversity summit this past April, where I kind of discussed with fraternity leaders how we can change the way we run our social events to show that no matter who you are, you're always invited and included in our houses, in our community. So I dealt with presidents and social chairs, and I worked with two groups. One group was called DIB, the Diversity Inclusion Board, to kind of discuss the way we work door at our social events, because I feel like currently there can be a stigma that the classic lines like, who do you know here, or being aggressive, or things that may happen when fraternity brothers are working events. And it's important to work door, right? To make sure we have the safety of our guests and we're adhering to fire codes and university policies and all those things. We want to make sure when we're doing that, we're conveying to people that, hey, like, we love you for who you are. We want to make you welcome, but if it's not possible to let you in because of these reasons, we want to make sure we still respect you, but unfortunately we can't let you into our event. We kind of talked about the language we should use and the policies we should use to make sure that we're conveying that love and respect to our fellow our campus students, because we share this campus and this space with everyone, no matter if you're in Greek life or not. We want to make sure we're doing those things. Another organization we worked through with that summit was organization called PAVE, which stands for the Penn Anti-Violence Educators, that does active bystander training. And essentially, we kind of talked about how we can be hyper-vigilant during events to make sure anyone that comes in can feel safe. Shifting gears to next semester, I want to hold a panel where different members of the IFC can kind of express how the things that make them who they are were celebrated through the organization. So I want to have people who not only are from these different races and backgrounds and socioeconomic status and all those things, but people who also kind of fit the status quo and those stereotypes, kind of show the whole picture of Greek life so they can convey their experience to potential members. And so potential new members can kind of ask their questions and kind of get clarifications on their different consumption of what Greek life is. And with those two events and other ideas that we're thinking of and executing on, I hope to kind of increase the diversity of our organization, because they already have somewhat some diversity, and I want to make sure that we're increasing that and showing that to our campus as a whole.
Those are some great ideas that you have that I know other campuses would love to start thinking about and implementing. One of the other things that I kind of noticed, and this has happened maybe over the last couple of years, I'm noticing that fraternity and sorority members around the country are starting to realize that there is a financial barrier to entering a fraternity or sorority. They're conscious of it, and they're concerned because they're thinking that other students are not coming into their organizations strictly for the monetary barrier that we are putting up. And they're conscious about that, and they feel that there are other people in the community that should be a part of their organization, but they're not. And they don't really know what to do about it. So I think we can agree that there is a financial commitment to join a fraternity or sorority. So how can we make this fraternity or sorority experience more accessible to more students from a financial standpoint?
No, that's a great question. And it's a fortunate reality of our community of the state that some people feel that they can't join our community because of financial barriers. And there is somewhat of a financial barrier. And I have the opinion, my board has the opinion, I feel like every group member as a whole, that monetary reason should never be what pushes you out of our community. And we want to try to do our best to kind of take that barrier down so we can welcome people who should be our community into it. So what we're doing at the Penn IFC is that we've started a scholarship fund that we recently permanently endowed that will allow new members of fraternities kind of to apply and kind of get some financial assistance to kind of decrease that burden of joining a fraternity. So we have this fund, and basically how new members, can get to get a scholarship award from it is that we have this application that's surrounded by an essay. And there are 3 questions. The essay is kind of meant to make sure that we are helping students who are also committed to increasing diversity and inclusion in the IFC, helping new members who are also committed to lowering this financial barrier and making sure people feel welcome no matter who they are. And so they choose 1 of 3 questions. Those questions are, what does Greek life mean to you? What is the potential initiative that we could execute to increase diversity and inclusion on our campus? And what is a community service or philanthropy event that kind of changed who you are as a person, as a leader, et cetera. And so for me, this is very important because I want to make sure that not only are we increasing the diversity and inclusion of our Greek organizations, but we're also filling those organizations with people who are also committed so we can get a cycle going and we can keep improving on our culture and on our organizations. And so for me, the scholarship fund is so important for me because when we announced that we were doing this starting in the spring of 2020, we got such great feedback. I personally got some text messages of people who thanked our board for prioritizing this because it is such important, and for I know so many people who for them finances made it a little more difficult to join fraternity. And so I encourage other chapters to either expand the scholarship fund or start it because it's a great way to kind of just decrease that financial barrier we're talking about. And not only decrease that financial barrier, but also fill your organizations with people who are also committed to change their community for the better as well.
I love this idea of a fund that your IFC put together. And ultimately, my chapter did this at the University of Buffalo, where the alumni put in $10,000 to start the fund. And then we were earning 10% interest. So basically the principal would not be touched. And we had a $1,000 scholarship that would go to a fraternity brother that wanted to join our local chapter, but didn't have the funds to do it. And you did that on a council level. And I think that makes a big statement to other men on campus that have that financial barrier in place. And you're saying, I recognize that we can't always allow everybody who wants to be in because of this financial barrier. And this is how the IFC is going to try and mitigate that issue. And I think that makes a big announcement and a big splash to other men on campus that, hey, we want you and we're trying to find ways to include you. The best other way that I've seen on an IFC level where that was done was Florida State. And, we talk about diversity, and it's real easy to talk about race when we talk about diversity, but there's also diversity in age, for example. There's a lot of military veterans that are coming back to school, and their age is obviously significantly higher than the normal student, let's say at UPenn or at Florida State in this particular case. And so the IFC said that we're going to waive all IFC dues for any military veteran that wants to join a fraternity at Florida State. That came down from the IFC. There was a huge newspaper article that was printed showing the entire IFC, and they made this pronouncement that you can get free IFC dues if you're a military veteran. And that wasn't a huge amount of money because the IFC dues are not a significant amount of money in the grand scheme of things, but it made a statement. It made a statement that we want diverse members, that we want leaders in our organization, and the military veterans, even though they might be slightly older than the normal student population, they have a lot to contribute to all fraternity and sororities, and we want them as part of our group. It was an important message.
That's amazing.
Yeah, it's really, really good to see all these great things that are happening. The other question that I had for you is, have you seen any good initiatives from other campuses outside of Penn, or maybe even Penn held VP of Diversity position at Penn? Maybe that can help some of their initiatives that could help the IFC. So what are you seeing outside of your IFC box?
Yeah, a great thing I've seen at other university campuses is that their IFCs are start helping their chapters, encourage them to kind of create diversity chairs within their own chapters. But I think it's a great idea, and I want to start exploring if that could be something that could be beneficial on our campus. Because with my position at the IFC level, it's much more administrative, right? The people I'm dealing with administrators, student leaders, these other experts in the field, and so it's much more administrative and high level, right? And so for me, because I have all those responsibilities, it's much more harder to prioritize those day-to-day interactions that we have, right? That can really start to either improve or detract from the inclusiveness of our environment. And so I feel like having diversity chairs within each chapter, it becomes much more easier for our community as a whole to kind of drive how diversity inclusion issues kind of drive our day-to-day interactions and behaviors. I feel that's something that's really important and really beneficial for other campuses. So I wanted to start exploring how that could factor in maybe into our campus. And so that's one thing I want to explore. Another thing I've seen is that other chapters are starting to working with like the wellness officers at their schools. And for me, that's very interesting, and I feel very beneficial because I'm very passionate about this, and I'm working very hard to improve these issues, and it kind of consumes a lot of my extracurricular life at Penn, and I'm so fortunate and glad I'm able to do that. But at the end of the day, I'm a 20-year-old kid, right? I mean, there's so much about these issues that I don't know that I'm not expert on, and I feel like it's important to reach out to those experts who've been working at that in 20 plus years and have this experience and this expertise in that field, and kind of allow their knowledge to kind of drive and influence how I operate and the initiatives I take on to make sure I'm doing my job to the best of my ability and to its fullest potential. So our wellness officer is a man named Dr. Benoit. So I want to reach out to him and start discussing how he can factor in more into my role as VP for Diversity and Inclusion, because I feel I can really, really improve the work I do for the better. In terms of the Panhandle VP of Diversity, she's a wonderful, wonderful woman named Cynthia Mendelapu. She's so brilliant. She's working at Goldman Sachs this summer. She's a good friend of mine, and she's absolutely killing it, not only in her schoolwork and Panhandle, but also every other thing she does. So she's an inspiration of mine. One thing she does so well is the scope of the organization she's worked with. Right now, I've been working with a lot of organizations where there's a pretty natural link between what I do and what they do, right? With like Diversity Inclusion Board and the Penn Anti-Violence Educators, things that kind of make sense for a VP, IFC VP of Diversity and Inclusion to work with. But she's expanded to more student groups such as with Wharton Women and all these other groups, right? To allow them to kind of voice their truth, voice their stories to Greek life. And I feel that's something I want to incorporate with. And more in general, just work with her more because she's a great mind, and a lot of these issues, right, overlap between Panhandle and the IFC. I feel like if we work together, we can do some good work. So there's a lot of sources for me to kind of improve what I do and kind of help out the mission I'm trying to carry out. And so I'm glad and very excited to kind of explore those different interactions throughout the rest of my time on this board. So I'm super excited for the future.
Yeah, I love the collaboration you're talking about with administrators, with Panhellenic. That collaboration is really the key to your success. And, I've seen some really good initiatives out of Panhellenic, for example, really just celebrating their diversity with images that speak to their diversity. Because just like we talked about earlier, I think it's real easy to just paint a brush and say that they're just predominantly white organizations and there's no diversity. And that's what we think about when we think about Panhandle or when we think about IFC. But the reality, like you found out, is actually very different. And so can we celebrate that to eliminate that stereotype at Penn? And so, I've seen Panhellenic will take pictures of members that represent various groups, whether we're talking about race, religion, country of origin, sexual orientation, physical disability, age, all of these different things. And they highlight that in images to get over that stereotype so that way people don't fall into the trap of automatically thinking it's just a bunch of white people, right? So that's really great to hear that you're going to be collaborating with all these different partners on campus. And I know you're going to be successful. There's no question in my mind.
Thank you so much.
You're really successful. One other thing, since you're there in Philadelphia, I love good food, all right? So I want to know, if I find myself in Philadelphia, where should I be going to eat and what should I order in Philly?
Oh, that's a great question. Of course, Philly is famous for the cheesesteaks. So there's a lot of great places you go to. My favorite is Gino's downtown. They have great cheesesteaks. You always, Philly go to the brim. So that's a great place to go to if you're ever in the mood for cheesesteak. We also have a great ramen. We have a place called Terakawa on 9th Street, which has great ramen. If you're in the mood for ramen, during the winter, it was one of my favorite foods because it would be very cold outside. And it would warm me up, get me in the mood for a nice nap or study session, whatever I had for the day. So that's always a good one. And also dim sum. I love dim sum. We have a great couple of houses in Philadelphia. So if you're ever in the mood to get a couple of friends and kind of eat family style, dim sum is also a great place to eat. So there's 3 recommendations I can make. It's Gino Steaks for cheesesteaks, Terragamos for great ramen, and any dim sum house in Philadelphia is gonna hit the spot. So those are my recommendations, and I really encourage you to go to Philly. It's a great city. I very much have enjoyed my time there for sure.
Yeah, see, now I know exactly what I'm doing when I hit Philly. I got 3 places to go immediately. That's perfect recommendations. I love it. So if somebody from our listening audience wants to connect with you, maybe it's software engineering, maybe they want to talk about filmmaking, or maybe they just want to get more ideas in terms of your VP of Diversity and Inclusion position that you're implementing here, and maybe bring to their campus, how can our audience contact you? How can our audience connect with you?
Yeah, it's a good, great quick question. And I would love to talk with anyone about any of the fraternity issues or software engineering or really anything that you want to talk about. I'm always available to discuss and kind of, share ideas. I'm on LinkedIn, so please feel free to connect me on that. It's just Majesty Uwagerikpe. I'm on LinkedIn. You can also shoot me an email. You can contact me on my school email, which is majuwa@seas.upenn.edu. So LinkedIn or email, 2 perfect ways to contact me, and I'm always available to talk and kind of exchange ideas and thoughts.
Majesty, you are the greatest. I'm telling you, I'm going to one day, you're going to be the CEO of Microsoft, and I'm going to be like, I remember he was at Penn, about diversity, and look at what this guy's doing in the corporate world. Really, the sky is the limit for you, and I just can't wait to see what is next. I think you've done
so much
here today in terms of helping other IFCs develop similar types of positions and learning about how that came about and some ideas that they can bring to their campus to address this issue head on. So thank you so much for what you've done here.
Thank you so much for having me.
Yeah, thank you for what you've done at Penn. And I'm a huge fan. I just can't wait to see how all of this shakes out for you over time. So good luck. Let's keep in touch. And thank you so much for being a part of our show.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much for having me. I had a great time, and I'm glad I was able to kind of express something that's been so important to me and why I see in my campus. So thank you so much for having me.
Hey, it's my pleasure. And thank you to the listeners for listening in to this episode number 24. Please share this with others that you think might be interested in this diversity initiative within the IFCs or Panhellenic or really anywhere, corporations, like we talked about, certainly not just for student organizations. So thank you so much for sticking with us. We hope to see you on the next episode of Fraternity Foodie. Bye for now.